everyone. Welcome to Switchblade Sisters Social Club, the true crime podcast where two friends exploit their worst fears for your entertainment.
You're welcome.
I'm Dee, a writer and podcaster.
And I'm Isla from Criminally Good Books, a true crime and crime fiction bookshop in York.
Follow us on all the socials.
Except for X, obviously.
Or have a look at our website, switchbladesisterssocialclub.com.
Check them out for all our latest episodes, events, deals, and other weird stuff.
Listeners' discretion advised.
Hi!
Hello, you.
Hello. This is us recording a podcast together. So,
did you forget?
No, I look forward to our recording time. There's nothing I like better in my week than when I'm researching episodes and recording with you. Those are my favorite moments.
I love them too.
I know. We had some bad news this week, which by the time this episode comes out will be a few weeks old, but it will still feel like horrendous news to us. Someone that we have worshipped is fair enough to use that word.
I think you worshipped.
Yeah, 100%. I definitely hero worship this person. I'm not going to name them, but it's very easy if you don't already know. I know a lot of our supporters do know this because they've been sending us messages. They have joined Reform in a very senior position. That's Reform UK, Nigel Farage's party. We had debates about what to do about this because we don't mind when people have slightly different political views to us, as long as those views are based in law and equal rights for everyone and not exclusionary or not elitist or anything like that. And Reform UK is not any of those things. It is a misogynistic, racist party. That's where we struggle. It reminded me of a friend of mine who said, she's American and she's a Democrat. And she said, she really struggles when they have like Thanksgiving dinner and stuff because a lot of her families vote Republican, but they can agree to disagree on certain things and how certain things should be done.
That's what democracy's about.
Exactly. But where she now struggles with them is the ones that are still Republican during the Trump eras, and they're wholeheartedly supporting Trump because Trump is something else. If you vote for Trump, you're voting against women, minorities of any kind, the queer community, people with disabilities, neurodiverse people, all of these people. You're voting against those people. It is a direct attack against those people. Don't get me wrong. If someone tells me they vote for Reform UK, I will take it personally because it is personal.
It feels like it's an attack on protected characteristics is the only thing I can think of.
Yeah.
Because I really struggle, I think, Reform and Trump.
And the scary thing is that Reform is getting a lot of traction in this country at the moment because people are so dissatisfied and I'm going to say it, a bit ignorant about where to go to move forward. And that's why it's easy for Reform to scoop those people up. I was talking with the amazing Laura Bird-Leakey, who works very closely with SNP. She submitted her Inquisition last week.
It was amazing.
And she said, sadly, even in Scotland, people are turning from SNP to Reform because they're so dissatisfied with a bunch of stuff. And that dissatisfaction and that blame is misplaced and so forth. And she said, ironically, a lot of them are saying, at least they're more transparent with their money, which is the opposite of the truth. This is one of the things that's being investigated heavily by a lot of people who are anti-Reform UK, is where they're getting their money, because it is very suspicious. It is almost entirely Russian funded with the aim of breaking down our democracy here in the UK. It's elitist, it's right wing. Apparently, according to experts, they aren't fascists because they're very specific criteria, but they are right wing. And Reform won't call themselves right wing, actually, because they lie.
Are you going to explain to me their manifesto? Or are you going to explain to me what they believe in? Because okay, yep.
Yeah, because I think it's really important for us to use our platform to explain a little bit more why this is so important. And again, to hopefully stop, I don't think anyone here is voting Reform. I don't think any of you guys could even be swayed to vote Reform.
Oh, I know people that are voting Reform.
Okay, well, I doubt they're listening to this podcast because we're too feminist for them. There's a lot of anti-immigrant rhetoric, and this is against illegal immigrants and legal immigration. I would just like to say this country was built on immigration. It would not be great, Britain, without the immigrants that they imported in order to build their country. And also, in terms of illegal immigration, it's not a choice to leave your country and leave everyone and everything behind and to take those routes, the journeys that illegal immigrants have to take to get here. They are no joke, fucking dangerous. We've all seen the bodies in the water and so forth. It is a birth lottery where you end up. And I always ask people when they start on this rant, like, what would you do if you lived in a war zone or in a place that was so economically deprived that you couldn't feed your kids, you couldn't protect your children? Would you not consider moving too? And if you couldn't do that legally, would you not consider doing it illegally? I sure as fuck would.
Yeah, I absolutely would. I would take my family. Like, there's no debate there. There's no debate. And I think if people say that they wouldn't, everyone's entitled to their opinion. But I think until you're in someone else's shoes, you can't say that you wouldn't.
That's it. I just think, like, have a little bit of a heart, have a little bit of understanding, I remember one article that still sticks with me because they're criticizing a woman who was a refugee and who had a mobile phone. Oh, look, she's got a mobile phone. I won't go to the shop at the end of the road without my phone. You think you're going to make that journey without your life source there?
Yeah,
bonkers.
Exactly.
Crazy what judgments people make that, if they were in those situations, they would do exactly the same,
Of course.
And I call bullshit if they say they wouldn't, So there's a lot of this anti-immigrant rhetoric, a lot of calls for the police to be more violent against immigrants. There was a poster saying that Britain was reaching breaking point. And again, I don't know enough about the finances. I'm shit with numbers. But I do believe that if these rich fuckers were paying more of the taxes that they should be, that we would have more resources in place to be able to spend on healthcare, the police, education, and so forth. And then it would feel less like breaking point. The breaking point is because of the public spending cuts, not because of the amount of space that we have in this country. There's anti-Muslim rhetoric. Farage has repeatedly conflated Islam with extremism. They're not the same thing. He said that Britain should be frightened of Muslim immigration and suggested a Muslim fifth column was growing in the UK. This is hate speech. In 2017, he defended Donald Trump's Muslim travel ban, saying it was the right thing to do. This was when Donald Trump wanted to ban all Muslims and all people from predominantly Muslim countries from going to the States. That would have meant me, FYI.
I mean, I remember. And I thought it was a joke, Deanna. I thought it was I know. I genuinely thought it was a joke. I thought someone's picked this up on a news channel by mistake. They've picked up the wrong...
Yeah, someone's posted a meme and someone's carried away. Nigel Farage said he wouldn't want to live next door to Romanians. He later kind of retracted it, but I didn't even go into UKIP stuff because I thought, no, let's give him his credit. This is a new party. I'm just going to focus on this one party and so forth. He supported Israel's right-wing government, something that very few people are still doing because even Israelis hate Netanyahu and his government. There's arrest warrants against many of them, well, 3 of them, including Netanyahu. Even if you support Israel, this current Israeli government is the worst thing that's happened to Israel. He supports the military actions. He condemns pro-Palestinian protests in the UK. Again, talking about free speech. He's condemning free speech in this country. And he's framed ceasefire protests as hate marches and anti-Semitic. Again, Palestinians are Semitic. And these are people calling for ceasefire. He's calling that hate marches. He constantly dismisses Palestinian suffering, refuses to acknowledge the scale of the civilian deaths in Palestine, and often smearing Palestinian solidarity with anti-Semitism. Whenever he's questioned on the issue, he constantly goes back to the Hamas acts of the 7th of October, 2023. I condemn those also. I constantly have to condemn them before anyone will listen to anything else I have to say. But that's not the only thing that's happened in the last 20 months. And things have escalated dramatically since then. And he is a critic of refugee intake from Arab countries in general.
Yeah, but I'm sure if a rich Arab gave him some money for his party, he'd probably accept it, don't you think, Jane?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm sure. He is very divisive in terms of his views of the queer community, and his gender views are conservative is not the word. He's opposed to gender inclusive education. So he doesn't like woke indoctrination. Funny coming after our Elon Musk episode. He wants to roll back trans rights. He opposes gender self-identification. So meaning you can't identify as whatever you want to identify. And to that, I ask, what the fuck does it matter to you? What does it matter to him if I sat here in my place in Twickenham, decide to identify as a fucking microwave? How does it affect his life? That's what I don't understand. And he just promotes trans hostile narratives in most of what he says on this issue. In interviews, he's ridiculed trans identities and he calls inclusive language madness. I remember he was really opposed to breastfeeding in public. I don't have kids. And I don't remember if you breastfed your kid. But
yeah, I did, yeah.
To say that you shouldn't breastfeed in public means excluding women for very large chunks of the day from public, right? I remember I had a friend who was shy about breastfeeding in public. That's her own choice.
Yeah, I think most women are shy about doing it. You're not going to whip out your boob and...
Because of these narratives. I mean, no one's like fucking standing on the bar with her tit out breastfeeding. You know, it's normally done fairly discreetly.
Yeah.
But my friend who was shy, it meant that she had to go sit in the bathroom in the pub or go and leave the room and do it privately, you know, and it just meant that we'd have social occasions where she was gone for hours at a time, you know, and that was her choice. But if you force that on women, that's not okay. He ignores the issue of domestic violence, doesn't touch it, doesn't touch gender pay gaps, or anything to do with childcare, which, you know, disproportionately affects females in this current setup, has voted against maternal rights in the EU. He was very anti-EU. So, you know, there's all that, which we were very anti-Brexit. And so that really breaks our heart. But he ironically got voted into, he was a member of the European Parliament for a while. He was voting against all maternity rights, like expanding maternity leave and protection in the workplace, et cetera, et cetera. And he regularly speaks on far-right platforms in the US and the UK, including Steve Bannon's show. That's a whole other episode I could do. I was looking into his past, and I'm going to say allegedly, there was a lot of anecdotal stories of him being very, very far-right while he was a student, before he knew he had to taper his language a little bit, which, you know, he's only done it a little bit. But also lots of members of Reform UK, lots of candidates and so forth have been exposed for very racist, homophobic, Islamophobic comments. So it's not just Nigel Farage, it's the entire party. And we sought for ages, we were debating, is there any way that this guy that we held with such high regard could join this party and not share those views? And we really can't. We were talking about how if Reform was the government in power and he got this position, then maybe he's working within the system.
Yes, maybe he's working within the system, and he's surrounded by other people who help further the role that he will have.
But the problem is that he himself has a platform, ironically full of true crime following that's sort of 75-ish% female. So I presume a large chunk of them are not going to be happy with this decision. He has a platform, he has a following. And again, like we were talking in the Elon Musk episode, once he acquired Twitter, when you have a platform, you have a responsibility.
You have a duty of care to people around you.
But I suppose if you think that those views are correct, then you don't think there's anything wrong with sharing them. So it's just we felt like we were mourning someone, didn't we? Like I was grieving.
We definitely did. And I think that this person, knowing that they have a platform, maybe they will be able to change the views of Nigel Farage and his party, but I very doubt that they will. I think it'll be very difficult for this person if they do not believe in the policies and the agenda of Reform. I think it'll be very difficult for them to make it right to us and other people that hold them in such high regard, because they cannot then say, I don't believe this policy of Reform. I don't believe this. I am against this. I know that this person, when they accepted the role and when they announced it, they did say that they're the same person they've always been, with the same views. And I want to know what those views are.
I know, because that makes me think, fuck, were you always
that way? Or actually, do you believe, are you more on our kind of side, but actually you've taken on this role because you hope that you can make a difference in society?
But would you ever take a job with Reform?
I can't imagine myself doing that. And the only way that I think that I could as if I thought that I absolutely would be supporting peace, justice for all, all of those things that we believe in.
Well, I would like to make a little call on something, a call of action based off of this. Jeremy Corbyn, my real one true love, and Zarah Sultana, amazing MP of Coventry, are forming a new party called Your Party.
Yeah.
Now, hear me out. They are collecting names for their mailing list, and that number is being reported. Even if you have no intention ever of voting for them, I recommend signing up to their mailing list because people are monitoring how many people are interested in following this new party. And that number is scaring the shit out of all these other parties. And good, good, because
I signed up straight away.
Same. So, and again, I just want to say it's not becoming a member of the party. It's just signing up for more information. They haven't sorted out their logistics or whatever. But I think it's a really good reflection of how dissatisfied people are with the other parties. And lots of people in Labour have been dissatisfied because recently you've had people being kicked out of the party for stupid reasons. The policies of Labour are getting more and more. Labour are afraid of losing out to Reform, basically. Reform came second in about 86 different seats that were Labour. So Labour feel like they've got Reform on their, even though Reform is getting a lot of people that used to vote Tory, they're in a lot of constituencies that Labour won. So Labour feel like they're biting at their heels and they're scared of Reform. And therefore, I think they are trying to kowtow a bit to Reform and their followers. We don't want that fucking shit. You're Labour. You're meant to be for the people. You're literally out of the unions, So if you want to just shit them up a bit and make them realize, look, you are not serving the people you're wanting to serve or claiming that you want to serve, sign up to this mailing list. I'll put the link in the show notes. Again, you're not joining the party. You're just saying, I'm interested to hear more, which to be honest, everyone should be because it's a big deal.
I can't wait until they have their inaugural conference.
Should we go?
Want to be there. Yeah.
Can we? I would love to because I love those two people. In all honesty, I think I would probably vote for that party if I have the opportunity to. I love those two people so much. They have always been very vocal on the issue of Palestine, but also all the other issues that are really important and dear to our hearts. And they have not kowtowed to they've not just bended over backwards to whatever their party leader has said. They know what they signed up to.
Jeremy Corbyn keeps getting voted in as a local MP. He's really good for his local constituents.
And he was Labour through and through in terms of what he believed in, what he stood for, and what Labour's meant to be. They were aligned 100%. The problem was when we had the center fucking right Labour people coming in and taking charge. It was really heartbreaking. Anyways, Your Party is going to be an awesome party.
This is your party.
Yeah. So I am presenting today, even though I presented actually the last two because of our two-parter on Elon Musk. I'm going to present again, not because I'm an egomaniac, but because Isla was a little bit behind on her research.
I got too excited with Harrogate Day and I just forgot.
Harrogate was amazing. So this case gripped me because I vaguely remember part of it. And I didn't realize that it was such a big case. And that's because it starts in one country in one decade and carries on in another country in another decade.
Ooh.
And also it involves the Catholic Church being a bit more than a little bit shisty. So today I'm going to be covering the case of Danilo Restivo.
I have no clue.
And actually what I want to say is I'm covering the case of Elisa Claps and Heather Barnett because those are his victims. This is the Italian serial killer who crossed borders and decades until justice finally caught up with him. I'm going to tell you the sources at the end because they reveal a bit too much about the story. And I want to do my reveals as theatrically as possible, obviously.
With flourish.
But I want to tell you that we are going to start off in the southern region of Italy called Basilicata, which is near Puglia and Calabria. It's kind of like in the instep of the heel of the boot. It's a highly forested and mountainous area, and it's really overlooked by tourists. Loads of tourists to the south of Italy, but they go to other places. It's also very lightly populated. It's referred to as Basilicata, but also Lucania. God. Apologies in advance because there are Italian words and names and places, but I'm going to try. So Lucania and Basilicata can be used interchangeably. One of the areas I'm going to be talking about is Matera, which I only just recently saw on the Stanley Tucci show. Have you watched that?
No, I haven't. No.
Oh, it's so good. He's basically, because he's Italian originally, he's kind of eating his way around Italy. But I saw this place on there and I really wanted to go to it. And it came up again in this story. So I'm just going to show you. Matera is a place where people basically started off living in caves and then came out. But it just looks so cute, doesn't it?
Oh, that looks so lovely.
Doesn't it?
Does look beautiful.
So I'll talk about that more, but that's one of the areas in the story. It's now a UNESCO World Heritage Site. There's over 160 cave churches, which is like the only kind of church I'm really kind of interested in going to visit.
Into now.
Yeah. The whole area has high unemployment, and this area in Matera and so forth has got lower levels of education, hygiene, sanitation issues, and health problems because people were living cramped in these caves. The rest of Italy was incredibly snobby towards it. You know, there's a massive divide between the much richer northern Italy and the southern states of Italy. They thought of them as just like cave dwellers and so forth. But more people now are living outside of the caves, as you saw. And now the caves are being renovated and they are becoming like bougie living spaces and hotels and restaurants. It's often used for filming. For example, Passion of the Christ. It's quite often used instead of Jerusalem to depict the old city of Jerusalem, because obviously there's religious and political conflict over there. And it reminded me of this time where I stayed in Cappadocia, which was awesome because that was also a town where people mainly lived in the caves, and they started building outside of the caves, but the caves are now the fancy posh dwellings, you know.
Oh.
There's an archaeological park there. There's a Lido and beach clubs, and there's beaches and so forth.
Sounds
and there's
lovely.
A ghost town called Krakow. But apparently there's lots of like ghost towns in this area because of the low population, people leaving because of poverty and moving to cities, moving up north, and also landslides and earthquakes have done a lot of damage.
Presumably moving to where like jobs are as well.
Yeah, okay. The cities moving up north. There's lots of Albanians in this area, so much so that there's even road signs and street signs and stuff in Albanian. There's amazing food and wine in the area, as you would expect.
You're making me want to go on holiday.
I know. I was literally planning my holiday. It's not heaving with tourism. The locals are known to be very hospitable. And apparently their bread is the best in Italy, if you ask them.
I used to go out with a girl. I didn't used to go out with a girl. I used to work with a girl. And she was from that region. And she used to come in with food and like talk to us about the region. And when she went on went home to see her parents. She used to show us pictures, and it just looked amazing. And the food just sounded fantastic.
Yeah. So I was having a look. There's some better known areas like Brindisi and Bari and so forth, but this whole area just looked phenomenal.
She was from Bari.
So definitely recommend the Tucci episode as well if you fancy a little knowledge on that.
Yeah, I'm just gonna make a note. Stanley Tucci.
So let's go back to Sunday, 12th of September, 1993. Antonio and Filomena Claps were getting ready for family lunch. They were in their country home in Tito, which was only 10 minutes drive from their city home in Potenza. Potenza is one of the large cities in the area. It's probably not that large, but it's one of the main cities. And they had a country home just 10 minutes drive away, which sounds amazing. They were already there with their middle child, Luciano, and they were expecting the rest of the family to join them later. Antonio ran a tobacconist in Potenza, so you can imagine he's fairly well known. And Filomena also worked as a local official. Filomena was a devout Catholic, which for Italy is not unusual.
Not a surprise.
She was a great cook, also, not to stereotype, but not unusual. And they were a very typical Italian family. They had 3 kids. Gildo, the eldest son, he was just finishing his law studies. Luciano, who's the one who was with them already at their country home. He was just about to do military service and he wanted to join the police. So from that, I understand that he's probably about 18. And Elisa, who was 16. She was the baby of the family, the only daughter. She was the apple of her father's eye. And I want to show you a picture of her.
Is this going to make me sad?
Yep. Remember, True Crime Podcast.
I know, Dee. I'm sorry. Okay. Oh, she looks so sweet.
I know, she does. She's so cute. She wanted to be a doctor in Africa. And she once spent hours trying to save a butterfly with damaged wings. So just trying to share some stories about how adorable this girl is.
Yeah, and how caring she is.
Yeah, she struggled a bit at school and she'd failed some of her exams that year, but she studied all summer and did her resits and passed. She was just naturally beautiful with thick black curly hair, as you saw. Life for the family was getting easier as the kids grew older. They'd had a really, really shit time because there was a massive earthquake in 1980, which meant that they lost their home, as did many people in the area, and they had to live in a caravan for a while and then a shipping container. At some point, the kids went to go live with an aunt. It was then that they decided to have a country home, and the parents decided they wanted to eventually retire there. Filomena's cooking on this one Sunday. Antonio's reading the paper. Ironically, what was on the front page was Yitzhak Rabin and Yasser Arafat with Bill Clinton signing the peace agreement, the Oslo Accords, which was supposed to give us a free Palestine, I think, by the end of the 90s.
Weren't you in that picture? You seem to have those pictures of you.
Face bombing.
Thirsty.
My dad calls it the never-ending peace process rather than everlasting peace. It was basically just turned out to be a plan to segregate us further. So that didn't play out well. I just thought it was ironic that that's what they were reading about on this one very notable day in their life. So Gildo, the eldest son, and Elisa were still in town and they were going to join later. Elisa woke up at around 10 and went to mass with her friend Eliana at around 11. And then the two friends were going to go back to the house and get in the car with Gildo and go out to their country home to have lunch all together. Elisa and Eliana, they went onto the main street in the city center to the church, which was the Chiesa della Santissima Trinita, often known as La Trinita. That's the church that they went to.
That's very cute. It looks like a very Italian, beautiful church with lots of arches.
Not super big, but definitely a main church, let's say. So they went to that church to go to mass. I was like, I get that it's a Catholic country, but is it usual for like a 16-year-old girl to go to mass without their parents?
I don't know.
She apparently did go to church quite regularly with her mum and sang in the church choir. So maybe it's not that unusual. But then Eliana goes back to the flat, to Elisa's flat, where Gildo's waiting for them. And she asks, is Elisa there? She said they'd been separated coming out of the church and she couldn't find her. So she'd gone back to her house to see if she'd gone straight home. Eliana went back into town to look for Elisa when she realized she wasn't at her house. And by 1 o'clock, Gildo also decided to go out and look for Elisa because they were getting worried at this point, you know?
Yeah.
He went to the church, but it was already locked. And streets were emptying because people were finishing with mass, finishing having their chit chat on the church steps, and they were going home for Sunday lunch. By now, it's like 2 p.m.-ish. He goes back to the flat. Eliana's still there. Gildo had told her to wait in the flat. Some of his friends had gathered to help look as well. So this tells me it's like really out of character, you know, for her to just disappear like this, and that it's a small enough town that like, where would she be? And she knew they had plans to go and meet their family. So in Tito, where the family are waiting for them to arrive, they are still waiting. But there's no phone line there. This is the 90s, but they hadn't installed a phone line in their country home. And it was pre-mobile phone time. So they're sat there waiting, the mother and father and one of the brothers. No idea why the other brother and sister haven't arrived yet. The food is getting cold. They're only 10 minutes drive away. So eventually they decide to just drive back to the city because they feel like something is wrong. Gildo was getting the sense back in Potenza that Eliana, the friend, was lying. He finally managed to get her to confess that Elisa and her hadn't gone to mass. And Elisa was due to meet with the guy, Danilo Restivo.
Oh.
Elisa went to go meet him at the church because he had told her he had a gift that he wanted to give her for passing her resits. Eliana and Elisa were supposed to meet in the piazza after about 15 minutes, but Elisa never showed. So Eliana waited, and then eventually came back to Elisa's house to see if she'd gone straight home. She'd looked in the church as well, didn't see her there. Gildo had heard her sister talking to Danilo Restivo on the phone the day before, and she was not super happy about the phone call, basically. He didn't know what the phone call was about, but when he asked her, who was that? And she was like, ugh, Danilo, that kind of vibe, right? So Danilo Restivo, let's talk about him a bit. He was not popular. He was often made fun of for being softly spoken. Before you feel sorry for him, because I think our natural inclination, because we're part of the Freaks and Geeks Club, is to
look at
sympathize. Yeah. Sometimes people are not popular because they are not nice.
Mm-hmm.
And he was definitely creepy, to say
the least. Is he of a
similar
age? I'm sorry.
I think he was a couple of years older than Elisa.
Okay.
She wasn't comfortable with his presence, his calling. He was like following around, turning up places. They even went on holiday to this beach in Calabria, and he turned up there. She was there with her brother, and he just appeared, and he made it clear he was there to see her. And she seemed really, really uncomfortable, you know? Gildo's spidey senses kicked into action when he hears that she was due to meet this guy, because he knew that she had reservations about Danilo Restivo. And in theory, he's the last person to have seen her. So he calls Danilo Restivo. Restivo says they met at the church. They sat behind the altar and talked for 15 minutes, then said goodbye. He said he wanted to meet her because he was in love with one of her friends, a girl called Paula, and he wanted her advice. And that Elisa said, don't try anything with her, you'll risk the friendship. So after 15 minutes, Elisa goes and he stays to pray for a bit, and then he leaves as well. Restivo says also that she was troubled when they met because apparently there was a man that had been harassing her this morning. At that point, Restivo's dad takes the phone from him and hangs up. Angelica, Elisa's friend, turns up at the Claps household. She's looking for Elisa and she wants to help when she realizes Elisa's missing. So she helps Gildo call all of her friends. They call Luca, an ex-boyfriend, no luck. They call all the other friends, no luck. Angelica also calls Restivo. And he again reiterates that they had met, but he was asking girl advice and that Elisa left and he doesn't know what happened after that. At that point, Elisa's parents arrive with Luciano and Gildo tells them what's going on, that Elisa's missing. They can't find her. They're calling friends. They're looked around town, et cetera, et cetera. Luciano says he's going to go to the Restivo household and confront Danilo and ask, face to face, what's going on. Danilo Restivo had been late to his own family lunch that day because he'd gone to the hospital with his sister for an injury on his hand. He got one stitch in his hand. Poor baby. I was like, do they even do a single stitch? Like, how?
It's curious.
But also, where's this injury from? And then the family were getting annoyed because there were phone calls. The Restivo family were receiving phone calls constantly from Gildo, from Elisa's friends, and whatever. And then Luciano turns up at the door. The dad, Maurizio Restivo, he is the director of the library. He's super influential. He's very rich for the region. He's Sicilian of origin and allegedly has links to the mafia.
I was going to say the mafia.
So when Luciano rings the bell to find more information, he finds Restivo there, asks him what's going on, but there is no budging in his story. He met up with Elisa left. Back at the Claps household, Luciano says that he feels like Restivo is lying. The first time he spoke to him, because he rang the doorbell twice, first time he spoke to him, he was highly anxious. Next time he spoke to him, he seemed calmer. Luciano had also asked him how he'd got the cut on his hand. And Restivo said he went to a building site where they're building an escalator after seeing Elisa and that he fell down the escalator.
So he was joyriding, but in like a construction site with an escalator.
It's like, do teenage boys go to building sites on their own? And I don't know. So again, they thought it was fishy, right?
Yeah.
They're still calling all the friends and asking people to search the town. And the mum kept on repeating, my daughter's not coming home. Heartbreaking, isn't it? But she must have sensed this is so out of character. Something is wrong. If it was an accident or something, they would have found her.
Yeah.
Later that evening, Luciano and Gildo decide to go back to see Restivo.
They must really have thought that they knew what was going on, to go back, to confront them, especially if like he's like influential, if the dad's influential in the town, head of the library, links to the mafia, and you're like, I'm going to go back to them. I've been already, but so they must have known something was right.
If they didn't suspect him of doing something to their sister, they for sure suspected him of lying and not telling the full story. But yes, and that's one thing that rings through this story is how much this family clearly loved their sister/daughter and how far they went to get justice for her was so endearing. So they go back and the family tell them that Danilo Restivo has gone to Naples to take an entrance exam for dentistry. I mean, if this exam was scheduled, then fair enough. But again, seems a bit convenient. So finally, the family go to the police to report Elisa missing. It's the dad and Gildo that go to the station. And they said, and we hear this time and time again, that the police didn't seem to take it very seriously. There wasn't a sense of urgency. It's another teenage girl going missing. She must have run away. But then Gildo goes with a friend to search the church again. And that's when they find out that the priest has also left the city. Don Mimi was the priest in charge of La Trinita Church at the time. He'd gone to a retreat and wouldn't be back for a few days. Him and his friend, they were walking around the church looking for signs of Elisa because the police weren't doing this. They didn't find anything, but they did find a locked door to the upstairs of the church. They were told by whoever was there at the church that they couldn't open it with Don Mimi being away. So whether that was that the priest was the only one with the key or whether they didn't have the authority to.
God. Okay.
Back at the police station, Gildo is interrogated about everything to do with their lives and Elisa's, which I think is a good thing. Obviously, they're trying to get the background and any potential leads or whatever, but it was kind of said in a way that implied that they suspected someone in the family of doing something. Maybe
but to be honest, that's what usually happens, isn't it? If someone goes missing, it's usually someone that knows them or in the family.
Yeah. So you know what? If it's just part of the process and they need to be eliminated so they can start looking elsewhere, fine. But they ignored any suggestion that Restivo might know something, which is bizarre because there is a clear other suspect. Apart from the usual family members, there's Restivo.
Who supposedly, according to him, was the last person to
see her,
like that we know of.
Has a suspicious injury as well. They even told the police, Gildo even told the police about this injury, about his anxious behavior, et cetera, about how he'd been bothering his sister in the past, how she wasn't too keen on him, but she felt obliged to meet him because of this gift and whatever. So then night falls, which must have been horrendous for the family because they still haven't heard anything of Elisa. The next day, Monday, there's still no news. So the brothers go printing hundreds of posters with Elisa's face on it and posted them all over the town. Gildo reads her diary for clues in case there's someone in her life they don't know about or something they don't know about. He found mentions of Danilo, one of them where she's saying that she tries to avoid him, but he regularly stops her. It was clear that she felt sorry for him and that she thought he was weird, but that she didn't want to, be rude or anything, but that he made her, but he made her deeply uncomfortable. And again, that goes back to us as women having to play a role, being seen as like polite and friendly and nice and smiling and blah, blah, blah. I had it the other day where someone on the way to the station said smile. And I told him one of my colleagues just got murdered. And that wasn't a lie. And I'm sorry in that moment, I couldn't meet your gender expectations of me, but
it's when people go smile, it might never happen.
Like, maybe it did, So she clearly felt like she couldn't be rude by telling him to back off or place some boundaries, which is really sad. So we've got, according to the police, the family as potential suspects. We have Danilo Restivo as a suspect.
And he's gone. He's gone to sit his exam at this point, right?
Yeah, just for a few days, but he's pissed off for a moment. Then there's an Albanian called Eris Giga. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. He was an acquaintance. But again, I think this is a small enough town that a lot of people of a similar age would know of each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Angelica, Elisa's friend, thought that she saw him hanging around the town. And she called him and she told him Elisa was missing. And he pretended he wasn't in the piazza. Gildo told the police this, that he's lying about his whereabouts on the day.
He was there.
Because it's not that weird, him hanging around the piazza on a Sunday where probably a lot of people hang around, you know, day that
unless he wasn't allowed out or something, and that's why he lied.
But then lying about it, it's not a good look.
No.
The police told the family that their posters and the media appeals made them look suspicious because it made it look like they were trying to detract attention away from the family. To which I say, what else are you meant to do as a family? Like, they're obviously trying to raise a lot of awareness about their missing sister in case anyone sees her anywhere or whatever. Like, Restivo finally comes back on the bus from his dental exam in Naples. His dad picks him up from the bus station with the lawyer, and they go straight to the police station to clear everything up. Restivo is sticking to his story. He saw Elisa for about 15 minutes to discuss his crush on her friend Paula. Noticed she was anxious because of this man harassing her that morning. Elisa left. He prayed. Then apparently he went to another church looking for his friends. They weren't there. So he went home via this building site for these new escalators. He fell over. On his way home, he bumped into his sister and his sister's boyfriend, and they took him to the hospital to get a single stitch. Then he went home for his family lunch. The police thought it was curious that Restivo fell the entire length of this very long escalator and that his glasses weren't damaged at all. He claimed, by the way, Danilo Restivo claimed, if you're wondering, why did he go to the building site, supposedly to check out this escalator? It's apparently because he's really interested in escalators. I call bullshit. And also he had gone there in the past with Paula. So I don't know if he was reminiscing of this time where he was supposedly there with the girl Paula that he liked.
So I'm just wondering, like, if you've got, I mean, I'm assuming the escalators cost quite a lot of money. So what is this building site? So he's basically illegally entered a building site, broke into this place.
I got the impression that it's an escalator, an outdoor escalator, like in a hilly area.
Sorry.
That's what I understood.
Okay, sorry. I thought it was like something that was made. Okay.
But so it is a building site for these new escalators, but I got the impression that because it's a very hilly area, it's outdoor escalators, basically. Okay. So the police are suspicious of him, but they don't think he's involved in Elisa's disappearance. They just think he's a fucking weird dude. The police went round to his house, though, to collect the clothes he was wearing that day, on the day that Elisa went missing. The Restivos agreed to do this, and they gave the police a bunch of clothes. But the policeman had overheard the mum saying that actually the clothes he wore on the day were hanging on the balcony to dry. And those clothes were not offered by the Restivos.
Right.
So when the policeman asked them, can I also have the clothes hanging on the drying rack on the balcony? The dad called the lawyer, said, no, you can't have them without a search warrant.
Suspicious. You know,
what they're saying is, yeah, sure, you can have the clothes, any clothes apart from the actual clothes he was wearing on that day.
So they were willing to give the other clothes, but not the ones that were on the balcony.
Not the ones he was actually wearing on the day. They were basically pretending to give clothes that he was wearing when actually the ones he was wearing they'd already been washed. That in itself is not suspicious, I don't think, you know?
No, like you might put clothes to, like,
sometimes I take clothes off and put them straight into the laundry, into the washing machine, if I'm doing a load.
Especially if he did legitimately fall and, like, you know, they might be dirty or, you know, whatever.
Yeah. But they were clearly not offering the correct set of clothes, the clothes asked for. So this did make the police suspicious, and they applied for a search warrant, but this wasn't approved from the high aboves. And now we're on to the second night without Elisa. The next day, Tuesday, the family find out that Danilo Restivo, actually has a record.
Ooh.
In 1986, he blindfolded 2 kids and tied their hands behind their backs. They were 12 and 14.
No.
I think he was a couple of years older. He put on surgical gloves and he cut the younger boy's neck with a bread knife. He locked them both up in a shack. The boy had to have stitches, and Restivo was not arrested. The charges were dropped because the dad paid 1 million lira to drop it.
That must be quite a lot. I mean, I don't know what lira is. Sorry, I know what lira is, but I don't know what the equivalent would be.
Between the converting to euros and then converting to pounds and the time difference, I didn't work out how much it was. But basically, they paid off the boys' families.
Yeah.
That evening, Tuesday evening, someone called to say that they had Elisa and she was fine, and they would call the same time the next day.
Oh.
So the family had hopes that she might be alive.
They're just playing with them.
Yeah, I mean, you've already cottoned on to the fact that this is a hoax, probably because I started off by saying that this was about an Italian serial killer called Danilo Restivo. There were some sightings later that day, which also, the day that she supposedly disappeared, which also gave the family hope. But the sightings didn't line up with each other, so none of them were really confirmed or made sense. The next day, they were waiting for that return phone call from the person who said they would call again the same time, but it never came. So clearly a hoax, clearly a distraction. What followed was loads of people calling with leads. Some of them, I hope, genuine attempts to assist in the case, but there were loads of false leads. There was loads of people blaming their enemies, trying to tie them up in, police investigations and whatnot. The family had another blow when Luciano finally got his military service call up. So he would be stationed 60 kilometers away, which was, sad for them at the time I know they didn't lose him in the same way, but I imagine they wanted to stick together at this time. And the family were really worried about Antonio, the dad. He basically really struggled to keep any sense of hope. It's like he knew, he was like, when any of the other family members, when Gildo did media appeals for information or whatever, he would often be like, what's the point?
Yeah.
It's like he knew.
Yeah.
But the love that this family have for each other is so, so sweet. Eliana is now saying that Elisa had been hanging out with Eris, the Albanian, and had been in the piazza.
Is her friend saying this?
Friend, exactly, that she'd gone into town with. Eris gave an alibi that he was at a friend's wedding, but none of the friends could corroborate. And actually, the wedding was the Saturday the week before. And in fact, more people came forward saying they'd seen him in the city center. Now, here we should say that he was Albanian. I believe there was quite a lot of tension between the local communities and the Albanian communities. So does he have something to hide, or is he just scared as an immigrant in an area that is plagued by corruption, that he will, maybe he's nervous of his treatment? Will he be treated fairly? Will he be scapegoated?
Exactly, yeah.
So we don't know at this point. But he did have a white Fiat Uno, and some witnesses had claimed to see Elisa in a white car with a man.
Okay.
So Eris was arrested. Eliana was also under investigation because she was an unreliable witness who had told lies initially. So bear that in mind. In December of that year, so in the following month, someone called the tip line and said they saw Elisa in Rome getting beaten up and shoved into a car. A specialist examined this voice, and guess who it was?
Oh, was it
Eliana?
Oh.
Sorry, I thought I'd spare you guessing. So Eliana is now calling the tip line with false leads herself. And it seemed like she was trying to shift attention away from herself because she's now under investigation for lying to the police anyways. So what's she doing? Lying more. They did like an Italian Crime Watch episode on Elisa a month after her disappearance. And a woman, Caterina, called from Potenza about a man who cuts young girls' hair on buses and in other places.
Oh, God.
Many girls know about this. And Caterina says his name is Danilo Restivo. The problem is that Caterina, who's calling in with this tip, is the mother of Eliana's boyfriend.
Oh, no. Okay.
So is this Eliana again trying to distract the investigation away from her? But the haircutting is creepy and apparently is true. So they're looking at Restivo. Obviously, he is coming across as suspicious.
Is he like cutting the hair to keep it?
We'll get to the hair cutting.
Oh, no.
No one saw him and Elisa at the church. He told them that they fell down this escalator, which seemed bizarre. He was known to be a liar. He had a history of violence against these two boys, and he claimed to have the keys to the churches. I wasn't sure if that was true or not at the time, but more to follow.
I mean, I also wonder if like some young men, boys would have like jobs where they would like do stuff for the priest and whatever, and like, you know, and then the priest has disappeared as well at one point.
Whatever's going on here, there's a lot of fucking shifty behavior. Something's not adding up properly, and there's a lot of dodgy characters now. The police at this point are still predominantly treating it like Elisa is a runaway, which upset the family so much. The mum even threw her shoe at a police detective. She was so upset by this.
Yeah, it's probably the least that I would have done, but yeah.
Because there was just nothing that would indicate that she was a runaway. Months passed, and the family were sure she was dead because she just wouldn't leave him like this, not without a word. So at the very best, in quotation marks, she was being held against her will, but they suspected she was dead. Gildo kept on questioning friends, kept on nudging police. He still thinks it's Restivo, but he even says he doesn't blame Danilo Restivo. He blames the parents and the system for not getting him the mental help he needed, which I think is just a very noble attitude. And he was angry that obviously the case wasn't resolved and justice hadn't been achieved for his sister. So the family themselves are the ones that are constantly pushing. They know the police aren't going to do anything unless there's pressure from the media, from the community, from the people, from other influential sources. So Gildo does media appearances and all sorts to keep this story alive. In the new year, 1994, there's still no sign of Elisa, and it's been months. There's been loads of hoax calls. There's been sightings all over the place. There was one sighting in Milan that seemed to have potential, let's say. So the cousin Pietro went to Milan to do an ID. They knew where this woman was and where she would be. So they sent the cousin because he was less emotionally charged by it all. And they put him in position. And lo and behold, he sees the girl that they think is Elisa. It does look like her, but it's not her. We even have Luciano looking at old maps of the city because apparently, again, this is a very cavey area. There's loads of tunnels and underground passages and so forth. So he's like wondering, could she be in one of those or taken out in some way? There were fake ransom notes around town.
Who would do that? I just think it's awful.
And it's annoying because even when they do capture those people that are leaving those fake ransom notes and charge them and they get convicted or whatever, it's still taking away resources from the main investigation. So even if they get punished for it, it's still fucking with the original investigation. And also in this case, they knew it was probably all hoaxes because these were months after she was initially taken. And it was very unlikely that Elisa would be taken for a ransom because she came from, an okay financially comfortable family, but not a wealthy one. There would be other people that would be targeted. And it would be unlikely that they would keep her for months before asking for a ransom. But they did go through with some of the ransom requests at different times.
What did they have to do?
They played along with some of them, but all of them obviously were
hoaxes.
Yeah. A psychic contacted Filomena, the mum, and said that she couldn't see Elisa amongst the dead, so she must be alive. Like there's all this weird, bizarre shit going on. And I can't imagine between all the hoaxes and all this, like how the family must have been coping. A police report came out in 1994, so the following year after she disappeared, saying that she had probably been killed, not that it wasn't an accident or a runaway, and it was probably by a man she knew. They actually thought it might be at this point Danilo Restivo, Eris Gega, or potentially both. So there were fresh calls to arrest both of them. There'd also been fresh sightings of her in Albania, supposedly, and it was thought that perhaps she had been sex trafficked there, which obviously goes to lend that theory that Eris was involved. It gives it a bit more credibility because he's Albanian and she might be in Albania. I mean, they were all false leads and hoaxes. Just a couple of weeks before the anniversary of Elisa's disappearance, Danilo was arrested for giving false statements. And I think it's clear at this point that the police know it's him. They just couldn't find Elisa's body or any other evidence. So they have very little to go on. He also has that extra layer of protection from his powerful father. So what they did was they arrested him and Eris Gega and put him in a cell together. And they bugged the cell. They bugged it.
Are they allowed to do that?
I presume they're allowed to do it, but they bugged the cell hoping that the two would discuss the case. But even as I heard this, that they were being put in a cell together, I thought they wouldn't be stupid enough to actually talk about anything incriminating while being in the police station, would they? Well, either one or both of them was innocent or they weren't stupid because they did not discuss the case at all. And then anyways, the bug stopped working at one point.
Oh, God. Okay.
I know. Restivo's father was still defending him publicly, even though he couldn't deny that there was an incident where Danilo Restivo accidentally cut a young boy's neck and that he was going around cutting women's hair because that was now out.
Okay, so you know they accidentally cut a young boy's neck. What about the fact that he tied them up and had their hands behind their back?
And left them in a shack, I know. In fact, the police bugged the dad's phone line.
Oh, okay.
And caught a call between the father and the daughter where they basically accused the Claps family of having something to do with Elisa's disappearance. But then again, I think that this family were clearly smart, clearly had connections.
They knew that they were being bugged, maybe.
Right?
And just recorded themselves.
So not only were they smart enough not to say anything incriminating in contexts on the phone, in the police station, etc., which might incriminate them, but they're now using it to their advantage by deflecting blame. Restivo had also been accused of the molestation of 3 women near his house. He would hoax call them repetitively. He would tell them what they were wearing. He would leave them creepy gifts. He would leave them love notes, etc., all using sort of fake names.
This all goes back to the gift that he gave to her.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
He got convicted of this, but instead of serving his time, he got a fine instead. Probably isn't that big a deal either way, because the time that he would have had to serve was 18 days.
Oh, God. And I bet you the dad paid the fine.
Oh, I'm sure. And I'm sure it didn't even touch the sides, you know?
No.
So Danilo Restivo went to court for perjury. It was actually at the same time as the molestation trial, for which he was sentenced to 1 year and 8 months. This is for lying about a bunch of stuff to do with the disappearance.
Okay.
The lawyer said they would appeal. So the sentence of 1 year and 8 months was suspended until the appeal. Have you ever heard of this?
Suspended? He's convicted.
He's convicted of a crime. He's sentenced to a specific time in jail. But then they say, we're going to appeal this. So the courts are like, okay, fine. Why don't you just stay home until we know the results of the appeal? I've never heard of that. So I don't know if it's an Italian thing, but I thought you went to jail and you did all your appeals from jail.
I would have thought so.
If anyone knows any more about this, if this happens in the UK, I'd be interested. Eris Gega was also tried for perjury, but he wasn't convicted, even though he had said he was in the square, he wasn't in the square, he'd been at this wedding, the wedding was the week before. And Eliana was also tried for perjury because she had made false statements and then made this phone call giving a false tip. She was convicted, but then she was absolved from this because it was said that she lied to protect herself.
A lot of people would say that. And the fact is that she took away police resources as well.
But apparently she had shared with friends that she was worried that if she came forth with the truth, what happened to Elisa could happen to her. And to be honest, maybe that's true, because maybe she suspects Danilo Restivo as well. And she knows that if she's vocal about it, they might come for her too.
Yeah, especially if the dad's super powerful locally, you can see why people would be scared.
But what I'm trying to get across definitely is that there's a lot of distracting elements from this case. It's not straightforward. There's a lot of people, innocent or guilty, that are definitely acting dodgy. A lot of secrets are coming out to play that may or may not be relevant. And a lot of people lying about stuff either because they're guilty of something related to this disappearance or because they're worried, scared about their status in the country or their safety or whatever. So it's a quagmire of information. In 1999, a website that Gildo set up to help find his sister got an email, supposedly from Elisa, saying she was in Brazil, she had left voluntarily and not look for her. But this email was traced back to the Tati Club in Potenza. The Tati Club has like pool tables and all sorts, but it also has computers. Remember, this is the 90s. We had like internet cafes, right?
Cafes. Oh my God, I remember.
Right? So Gildo manages to convince the woman that's working at the club at the time that he goes to visit to give him a list of who was on the computer at that time that email was sent. And guess who it was? Could be fucking anyone because they're all being weird.
I know. I actually would just say, were they all there? Were they all doing
all of them pressing send at the same time? No, it was Danilo Restivo.
Okay.
So basically, it looks like that email claiming to be Elisa in Brazil was from Danilo Restivo. Again, what's his motive? Was he working with Eliana? Because they're now both involved in sending false leads into the police.
Trying to get attention away from himself, trying to get attention away from the investigation, trying to make out that she's still around.
So then to add further complications, 3 people peripherally involved with this case died in mysterious car crashes.
Oh my God.
Separate car crashes.
Okay. No. Oh my God, shut up.
One car crash might be a bit suspicious, but these are 3 separate ones. So it was a local police officer who had dated Danilo Restivo's sister in the past. It was suspected that she had called him for advice after Elisa went missing. And then it was maybe feared that this police officer knew too much. So he died in a car crash just 2 months after Elisa went missing. The other 2 were eyewitnesses. There was also loads of accusations of incompetence of the police force. For example, not getting Danilo Restivo's clothes from the day immediately, even though they were described as bloodstained. They'd only attempted to get them afterwards, after they'd been washed. And I don't even think, as we know, they were successful at that.
No.
They never searched the rest of the church, for example. But this is a very turbulent time in the political sphere in Italy and the rest of the world, to be honest. Russia, Northern Ireland, etc., were all big in the news at the time. Italy itself had a debt problem and was in a recession. There was political instability, which meant an increase of the mafia and the influence of the mafia in a lot of areas of Italy. And Silvio
Berlusconi,
I hate even saying his name, Silvio Berlusconi, was rising in fame, popularity, power, and influence. This is the early 90s.
I loved it when it all fell apart for him. I can't tell you how happy I am.
I know, because basically he's
like an Italian Trump.
Italian Trump was exactly what I was going to say.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. I'm glad you're of the same opinion. So for those of you who are lucky to be too young to remember this guy or need a little reminder, he was a big name in business. He was in the media a lot. And he seemed like a breath of fresh air compared to a lot of the drab religious or military voices in Italy at the time.
He was more interesting. He was very media savvy, he was like
charismatic.
Everywhere. Yeah, I think that's the word, charismatic. Yeah, definitely.
And very different. Mm-hmm. Also, it should be noted that Italy obviously has a fascist background, which luckily it has changed a lot, but there are some deep-rooted ideals there that he managed to exploit rather than eliminate. He was very showy. He was popular on TV. So why not let him run the country?
And he was like fashionable, he would always wear quite slick outfits and,
Scarily, he was reelected twice. So he was in power. He was prime minister 3 separate times from 1994 to 95, 2001 to 2006, and 2008 to 2011. So basically, he comes into power the year after Elisa Claps goes missing. So I went down a little bit of a Silvio Berlusconi rabbit hole, and I wanted to list to you some of the scandals he was involved in.
Oh, please. I love all this. I remember things from the time.
I'm going to start with probably the most memorable, bunga bunga parties.
Oh, I've forgotten that was the name for it.
There were accusations that he was hosting sex parties with young women, including an underage Moroccan dancer known as Ruby. He was initially convicted for paying for sex with a minor, but later acquitted on appeal. So he was convicted and then acquitted of it. There's a lot of tax fraud allegations against him, but he was convicted in 2012 for large-scale tax fraud scheme involving his media companies. This is after, I think this was the downfall of him.
That's right. He was media companies. That's right. He was really, yeah.
He served a community service sentence due to his age. So because he was a very old man, he didn't have to go to jail, which I don't think is a luxury afforded everyone.
No, I wouldn't have thought so.
There were bribery and corruption allegations, multiple accusations of bribing judges, senators, witnesses. Some cases were dismissed due to statute of limitations or acquittal. Those are allegations, I should say. There were mafia links. He's never been convicted of this, but he had his close associate, Marcello Dell'Utri, who was jailed, was suspected of ties to the Sicilian mafia. He was regularly in trouble for making inappropriate remarks, frequently made sexist, racist, and other inappropriate comments, which was incredibly embarrassing to Italy, not to him because he didn't give a shit. Let's go through some of these inappropriate remarks.
Oh, no.
On Angela Merkel in 2008, he reportedly described the German chancellor as an unfuckable lardass, quotation marks. And I am happy to repeat that quote because I think it reflects poorly only on Berlusconi and not on Angela Merkel at all. He denied this.
Oh, he denied saying it. I didn't realize he denied it. Okay.
It was a private conversation that had been leaked. To a female police officer, he told her that she was, quotation marks, too beautiful to be doing a job like this. I know, we're just staring at each other in silence. On female politicians, he said that Italy had too few women in politics. Great. But then he added, in quotation marks, we're going to broaden the team with beautiful showgirls.
Oh my God.
You couldn't write this shit. About Barack Obama in 2008.
No.
Yep. He said, he's young, handsome, and even has a good tan. Oh.
I wonder what he was trying to say there.
It's like, yes, we know he's black. Like, what? Anyways, my point is that there was a lot going on in Italy in 93, 94.
Yeah.
And in the rest of the world. So the media just let slide the story of another teenage girl who went missing because teenage girls run away from home and go missing all the time, don't they? So now I'm going to do something that you're going to hate. I'm going to give you true crime blue balls because it is a two-parter. Boom. But we will record part 2 on another day. Don't you worry.
Oh my God.
I told you this case is a case of two halves in different countries and different decades. So this was part 1.
Oh my God.
I'm going to do something I don't like doing, but I'm still going to maintain that I will reveal my sources, but at the end of part 2, because they reveal too much.
Okay. And I'm not going to look at anything online.
Don't look at anything online.
Okay. I won't, but I'm so into this.
This police investigation has just thrown up everyone's secrets, everyone's dodgy behaviors. We still haven't found Elisa Claps. Okay. So it's harder when they don't even have evidence that she's been murdered, let alone by whom. But it's clear that so many people are lying. So many people are trying to save their skin. You have the added complication of corruption, of people giving the hoaxes, the phone calls, the ransom requests, and so forth. So we will catch up again next week with the Claps family. I'm so sorry to do that to you, but tough titties. Come back and find us next week. This is our equivalent of an EastEnders cliffhanger. Boom, 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 boom. But before we go, we are, of course, going to cleanse one's palate with
the
Inquisition. I'm going to show you a picture, which is hot, and it's Karen.
Coventry Karen?
No. Coventry Karen, where are you? You said you would submit your tattoos, and I saw you the other week in Coventry, and I know you've got fabulous ones. I know. She's got amazing tattoos.
You have to describe it.
So it looks like it's on a tattoo chair. So I think it must be when she's just had it done. But she's basically covered in gorgeous tattoos. And she says, well, I love them all, but maybe my newest one, which is still a bit red in this photo, it's Medusa on my butt. Think about it, she
says. So well done. And like,
I know, they're gorgeous.
I think it's fabric that she's got draped over her on her chest, but actually it's the tattoo, or like the hair of.
Yeah, it's amazing. She's got like roses, she's got Medusa, she's got like, looks like a bit of a female crow face on her back. She's amazing.
I think this is possibly one of the best I've ever seen. Like,
yeah, second Medusa, amazing tattoo. And actually, when I met Karen at CrimeCon, we got into the bathroom together and basically all but stripped down to show each other our tattoos. And it was the first time I met her, but she was
my God,
the kind of person that inspires that kind of closeness. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
very warm, accepting person. She's at mixed_up_Dolly_ on social media. On Instagram, she does pole fitness. She's fucking fabulous at it. And yeah, she's just a legend. So thank you for sharing. And please submit any more tattoos, anyone, even if you've submitted before.
I'll wrangle up some people.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm going to accost people at Punk Rock Holiday to get them to submit their tattoos. You're going to
get so many.
Well, I love all of our sexy listeners, tattooed or not.
Tattooed or not, you don't have to have a tattoo. We still love you.
Well, remember, we also accept submissions of tattoos you're thinking about getting. So if you've been on the fence about a tattoo that you've always wanted, because we remember, first tattoo is the one that you think the most about. You debate it. Once you've got the first tattoo, definitely by the time you've got a second, then you're like, yeah, just chuck any old shit on, if you're like me. But you definitely spend less time weighing up.
You're like, do I want it? Do I need it? Doesn't matter. It's just, shall I get it? Do they have an appointment?
The answer is, yeah, I want it. I'm addicted to tattoos now. When can they fit me in? So if you are debating your first tattoo, unless you're underage, I don't want to get involved in any of that drama, then send us a picture of it or the idea of it so that we can tell you what we think about it.
Definitely.
All right. Good night, sexy listeners, or good morning. I don't know why I said good night. It's 3 p.m. here.
It's so overcast today.
It's because it's been such a long day already. Bye.
Like this episode? Want more? Come visit me, Isla, at Criminally Good Books in the heart of York. We're an independent bookshop dedicated entirely to crime. From cosy mysteries to gritty thrillers, historical whodunits to juicy true crime. We've got signed editions, special gifts, and plenty of recommendations for your next obsession. We also host a bunch of awesome author events. Can't make it in person? Visit us online at criminallygoodbooks.co.uk.